Now, most people know the end of the world happened in 2012. I don't know, so I don't know. I think we're all in purgatory right now because the end of the world happened in 2012. I don't know if you guys remember all this. I mean, I think we all lived through it, right? 2012, and it was like all the hype and everything like that went on. We had all these people basically talking about the Mayans. They proclaimed that there was going to be an end of the world scenario, that the whole world was going to burn, that there was going to be a pole shift. Do you remember all that sort of shit, right? Well, that was all just, of course, Hollywood nonsense. It was all basically just a bunch of, especially within like the New Age community, they really just took this thing and took it for a ride. And that's really unfortunate. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So, no, the Mayans did not, in any way, shape, or form, claim that the world was going to end at 2012. There was just nothing at all about that. Though they did talk about that this would be the end of their long count calendar, which we'll go into. Now, the person that is really well known for actually correlating this sort of end date of the Mayan calendar, the guy who did the most actually academic work on it was John Major Jenkins. This is his book, Maya. He's got several books, and I've read this one, the Galactic Alignment one, and then he's got another one. This one is really good too. This was an early book, I believe. It's Tzolk'in, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Tzolk'in today. Tzolk'in, Visionary Perspectives and Calendar Studies by John Major Jenkins, and then this was his like sort of really sort of famous one, Maya Cosmogenesis, where he sort of put the whole story together. The thing I just found this out that when I was doing this lecture and putting this all together. The John Major Jenkins died in July of 2017 of kidney cancer, and I just found this out while doing this. So, and I kind of want to talk about John's work and really just try to carry the torch for him a little bit here. So, this is what I posted on Instagram about John Major Jenkins. I just found out yesterday that John Major Jenkins died in 2017 of kidney cancer. It really broke me up. John was an enormous inspiration to me, and there's no way I'd be doing what I'm doing now without him. John was the Mayan scholar who near single-handedly reconstructed the Mayan cosmology with such comprehensiveness, synthesizing their art, architecture, myths, glyphs, archaeology, astronomy, and more. John was the main scholar to associate the Mayan long count with the rising of the December solstice sun in 2012, a verifiable astronomical event. John was very adamant against the harebrained notions and half-wit New Age ideas that latched themselves onto the whole 2012 doomsday apocalypse meme. John reiterated through interviews and writings that the Mayans never, ever claimed that there would be an end of the world, but rather their cosmology and prophecies always spoke of transformation and renewal. Transformation and renewal is what the Mayans talked about. Because of all the hoopla and hype surrounding 2012, John's legitimate and absolutely fantastic work was railroaded by the academics who claimed John was some New Age kook and doomsdayer, never once actually reading what John wrote or said, and never once giving credence to the decades worth of honest scholarly work that he did. John wasn't some fear-mongering doomsdayer. Nothing could be further from the truth. John's ability to cross-correlate and synthesize the Mayan worldview was unparalleled. I can't say it enough, and I really can't say this enough. I would not be doing what I'm doing today without John's stamina, grace, professionalism, and syncretic mind. John edited my last book, Pi in the English Alphabet, Volume 3. And Jennifer and I were even considering living with him at his home in Windsor, Colorado. The move never worked out, and shortly after that, John got sick. And I didn't know this. So I contacted him maybe like 6 to 8 months ago, writing to see if he wanted to work on a movie project together, re-examining 2012, is what we're going to do today, as I had uncovered some absolutely fantastic mathematical evidence about the intricacy and true divinity of the Tzolk'in, a 260-day calendar that has been used unbroken for over 2,000 years. I never heard back from John. And it was pretty heartbroken because I really wanted to work with him. And now I know why I didn't hear back from him. Because he passed on. And so I hope God is treating you well, John, because you deserve it. So John was a legitimate scholar. And he actually spent time going down when he was like really young, like in just outside of college or whatever. He would spend his own money to actually go down to, Mesoamerica and things like that and actually visit the sites, take pictures and write about it and talk with the sort of wisdom keepers and all that sort of stuff, the original people that had actually held this calendar together all of these years. And so he did, I mean, this was like honest scholarly work, right? He would go down on his own money, and he actually self-printed books before freaking, you know, CreateSpace and all those other ones, right? He actually took all of this stuff, wrote it down, and he would go to Kinko's and print out copies of the book and then, you know, free ring binder it and stuff like that and sell it. So that's what he was doing. That was originally how John got started with the Mayans. He went down there, he heard about the long count calendar, was very interested in the fact that there was this unbroken calendar for 2,000 years. He wanted to know more about it. The problem is that John was never considered an actual scholar. Why? Because he was multidisciplinary, right? Because he actually cross-correlated different studies and said, wait, no, we have to take a more comprehensive view. We need to look at the Mayan worldview, and we need to take everything into consideration. We can't just get stuck in anthropology. We can't just get stuck in archaeology. We can't just get stuck on a freaking calendar. No, we need to look at the glyphs, the myths, their worldviews, the ball court. We need to look at the Quetzalcoatl Kukulkan figure. We need to look at the archaeology and things like that, right? Synthesize all of this. Then we can get an honest understanding. Well, he spent years doing this. I mean, like I said, single-handedly basically reconstructed the Mayan cosmology, and he was shit on by academics. Because academics are not academics. They're not. It's a joke anymore. And it's honestly, to watch it happen at the time was really frustrating. Now to know that he's died and he's basically just swept up in the whole 2012 meme is just ridiculous. It's truly sad, because John was just a fantastic scholar. And I basically I came to understand archaeoastronomy, which is taking, archaeology, basically looking at the monuments and things like that, and astronomy and merging them. And he was one of the first guys that actually set me off into understanding such a dense topic. So, and I want to play something here real quick. This is actually from John at the 2012 premiere.
Well, the fact is that if you look very closely at the Maya traditions, they didn't predict doomsday in 2012. Their tradition is all about transformation and renewal. It's not that closely related to what the Maya are actually talking about. It's no surprise. I mean, Hollywood will do what Hollywood does. It's quite the visual spectacle. But the Maya, actually, if you look at their traditions, they didn't predict doomsday in 2012. That's the open secret, I think. But what we can do, we can actually study the Maya traditions and find out that there's a really impressive astronomical science embedded in this material.
I'm trying.
Well, I think they've been used by all the attention going to their calendar. I think that the movie can really draw attention to what the Maya are really experiencing today in their world. And I think that the Maya world is going through kind of a renaissance. And the ancient Maya teachings are really kind of about projecting to the state, but thinking of it as a time of maximized opportunity for transformation and renewal. If human beings can open up to the full possibility of what this means.
So there you go. There's John Major Jenkins at the movie. You guys remember the movie 2012, right? I actually went and saw that, right, with John Cusack and all those cats, right? And it was the end of the world scenario, tsunamis and hurricanes and things like that, and the whole world is, going to be destroyed, all according to some Mayan calendar and stuff like that. So here's John Major Jenkins literally at the premiere being like, no, they didn't talk about that shit at all. Like, no. The Mayans always talked about transformation and renewal, and he's even saying at the premiere, he's like, look, if we actually go and look at what the Mayans were saying and study the Mayans, we can clearly see that they had a highly advanced astronomical science. And the really sad shit is that all got washed away. All of that work got washed away. Not only by the New Age, kooks and cranks and stuff like that, but moreover by academia. And that's the thing that's extremely frustrating. You're always going to have New Age, people that drum up some sort of conspiracy or end of the world scenario on any sort of date, right? And so, of course, the Mayans with their long count calendar, they were going to do this. But John, the entire time, was like, nope, none of that. And he got railroaded by it. He got lambasted by it. So I want to read something that John wrote as well. Really, just to honor the guy. And then we'll move on to the calendar here. Listen to this, right? This is from John Major Jenkins' site, the Alignment 2012. The 2012 topic has required clear and discerning expositions in terms of my efforts to reconstruct what the ancient Maya believed about it, and scholarly critics have chosen to stoop to the lowest of ethical limits by targeting my perceived religious persuasion, asserting imagined influences from New Age cult leaders, and using pejorative terms like pseudoscience, attacking my personal associations, and asserting lies about my background. In peer-reviewed journals, by the way, they did this, in order to mitigate my pioneering role in the 2012 discussion. I've also had death threats and other nuisances from various trolls and debunkers, some acting anonymously like cowards, and in the wake of 2012 was physically assaulted in a public space. So this is what happens when you do legitimate, honest work that actually challenges, especially when it challenges the intelligentsia, the professorial elite, right? Because basically what he was doing is saying, no, there's legitimacy to this ancient culture that had highly advanced astronomy, mathematics, and things like that. And he spent his whole life basically just fighting people that were like, no, you thought the end of the world was going to happen in 2012. Unbelievably sad. I just wanted to take a little time. When I found out he died, I wanted to take time to just sort of honor John, because it's truly, truly sad.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that the major discoveries that we find in science were actually made from the peripheries, with autodidactic people that were doing their own research that brought out something interesting that wasn't being considered by, the intelligentsia, modern academia.
That is a phenomenon that, I talk about that, and especially in Maya studies. It's interesting that a lot of the breakthroughs in Maya studies in particular usually came from outsiders, which is a bit ironic because, I've been basically drawn and quartered, tarred and feathered, over and over and over again for the stuff that I was saying about 2012. It's an interesting and unique sort of thing with the 2012 topic, because I think what happened is that scholars didn't treat it seriously, and by the time that it started to ramp up and I was publishing on it and treating it as a serious topic of rational investigation, you already had 2012 branded in the marketplace in a certain way. It was associated with people like Jose Arguelles or even Terence McKenna, and from the vantage point of scholars, they look at that and they just think that this is some new age marketplace goofball thing, and they never even seem to take the time to take a look at it. There was one or two random scholars over the years that noticed 2012 and thought that, well, maybe there's something going on there, but really, it really wasn't until my book Maya Cosmogenesis 2012 that came out in '98 that sort of broke the case and treated it as a topic of serious investigation. The very fact that somebody outside the guild was doing that, I think, was a threat, and I was therefore treated with great contempt over the years. One more thing real quick is that the irony with this is that scholars were forced to seriously treat 2012 as a viable topic of investigation around 2006, when the 2012 inscription from the site of Tortuguero came to widespread attention, and then the race was on to say something meaningful about it. And by 2010 and 2011 and 2012, scholars were publishing on it, and it turns out that they started saying exactly what I was saying in terms of world renewal. The basic formula, like one part of my interpretation of what 2012 meant to the ancient Maya, is that they believed that deity sacrifice is necessary in order to facilitate world renewal. And you have that in the creation myth. 7 macaw must be sacrificed, and then 1 Hunahpu can be reborn. And then I link it to the astronomical part of my theory, because 1 Hunahpu represents the December solstice sun, and that comes into rebirth and the dark rift and all that kind of stuff. The astronomical part of my work actually, too, has been treated seriously by a couple of scholars. So the irony is that apparently I was barking up the right tree.
I mean, that was an interview that I did with John Major Jenkins on the Marty Leeds Mathematical Radio Hour, the first season, which is available on MartyLeeds33.com. That, he said in there, he's like, I was outside of the guild, and so they weren't going to let me in. And that's how academia works. And that's why we're never going to get ahead in any of these what could be considered sacred sciences or spiritual sciences, is because there's a big old wall in academia that's never going to let guys like John Major Jenkins in. And I'm just here to tell you, as I feel like an absolutely viable and mathematician and somebody who's doing honest scholarly work in these sorts of areas, numerology, arithmomancy, sacred geometry, gematria, I can tell you I'm experiencing the same thing. I recently just contacted a guy, I'll be quick with this, but I recently just contacted a guy, Mythologer. I don't know if you know him. He's got several 100,000 subscribers, maybe a million or something like that on YouTube. And I contacted him. I said, hey man, can I get 15 minutes of your time? 15 minutes of your time, I will pay you for your time. I would like to show you some of the things that I've uncovered. It would take me about 5 minutes to do. Nope, doesn't want to hear it. Nope. And I don't know how many times I've actually contacted people in scholarly areas, university level areas, and unless you're published in a peer-reviewed journal, you're not even considered viable at all. You're not considered a legitimate scholar at all. And let me say this, John, here's to you. I'll cheers a beer later for him. So right now it's coffee.
The final days. I, like a dispossessed Brahmin zombie, fondly gaze upon the attentive girl, going about her tasks, a gadfly rearranging trinkets as if they had meaning. Like watching a preening feline, oblivious to any perceptive other, I fall in sympathy with the symbol, for millions of mimicking monads doing their day with reckless apathy. Streams of stories parade by my eye, knowing their nonsense in silent seasons, connecting reflections in endless oblations to the one God of unruly reasons, wanting a way to stop the play. The craze committed in lonely hours, flowers now in karmic surprise, random motion, entropic commands demand I relinquish congenital terror, correcting the error of bottomless lies. Untoward temerity takes my breath, weighing the feather against my conscience, begging the keepers of crapulous constants to leaven the loaves of practical patrons, drawing near the source of this, the only that ever is. A poisonous pasture of pretentiousness disqualifies myself from playing the game. Race of racers, you've already won. You split in two, the egg you are. So unfissure your face with a falling star to love with joy and happiness, and hope that it's all over sooner than your season sours, or be lost again between the hours.